This is the third part of our video series on certificate management using the BACCARI tool. As a review, the series discusses three scenarios ranging from basic to advanced. In the first scenario, the owner delegates the role of CA to an installer who then creates certificates. In the second scenario, we see the owner retaining the role of CA and the installers exchanging certificate requests via email or some other means. In the third scenario, which is the topic of this video, the file exchange happens via the web, and we will see the option for automatic certificate signing for immediate turnaround of the requests. Now, this video is a supplement to the second scenario, so you will definitely want to watch that video first, since this video assumes that you've already set up the BACCARI CA and you understand the process of exchanging carry files and what the carry files are. So this video will pick up where that one leaves off and describe how to set up a web server to do that file exchange automatically. Now, these are some powerful features, but setting up a secure web server is not a trivial task. In this video, we'll make some assumptions that you are familiar with web terminology like DNS name resolution and the difference between self-signed and public certificates for web servers. And to be clear, in this video, when we say certificate, we almost always referring to the certificate for HTTPS communications with a web browser, not the certificates used by BACnet SC devices that we've talked about in the previous videos. So now that you have a working CA, let's turn on the web access. Log in as the administrator and go to the Setup tab. Now we will skip past multi-user for a minute. We'll get to that later. And we go to the secure web server and the non-secure web server. Let's turn on the non-secure web server first. And that is now listening on port 80, which is typical. If you want to change that, disable it. You can make it listen on different addresses or different ports if you need to. Then let's try to enable this secure web server because that's our ultimate goal. But we can't. There's no certificate. So you have options. You can import certificates from various places. There's lots of descriptions here. If you select the certificate and key files that were given to you for a web server, maybe it's a VeriSign certificate that somebody in your IT department has given you. This is where you would do it. You would bring it in here. But for the time being, let's just create a self-signed certificate so we can get up and running. So obviously your certificate needs password, and again, you have to enter your login password so it can make these changes to the disk. Oops. Okay, now we have a self-signed certificate, and we can enable the server and see what happens. All right, we're now listening on the default port of 443. Again, you can change the address and port that it binds to. Let's see what that looks like from the internet. If we go to the HTTP, the non-secure port, you see that it looks very similar to what we've seen locally. You can do things to create carry files, but they will be created as a guest. Because it's not secure, you can't log in and you can't register. But you can create a file and download it. But because of those limitations, we generally want to use HTTPS. So if we add that, we'll see what happens with our self-signed certificate. As expected, we get a warning that says, this is not good. And if it says it's using an invalid security certificate, and if we view the certificate, you can see that it is just our server, but it was self-signed. The common name is server and the issuer name is server. So you can proceed with this. You can accept the risk and continue in certain browsers. This is Firefox. Google and Safari behave slightly differently. But now that we're logged in with security and we've gone past that ugly warning, we can log in as before. Even the owner can log in remotely this way. So dealing with the errors of a self-signed certificate might be perfectly fine for your installation, but if you'd like to get rid of that and use a standard certificate, again, you can import a certificate if it's given to you. You can reference a certificate that's on your disk if those are available as well. But what we want to do right now is enable the ACME feature. Now, ACME is not the name of a company or a product. It's actually the name of a standard protocol used to retrieve web server certificates from multiple public certificate authorities. It stands for Automated Certificate Management Environment. And BACCARI uses the word ACME as a shorthand for, hey, give me an official certificate for my server as easy as possible. And, oh, by the way, I want it for free. So we've built in support for the two main free certificate providers. So let's first disable our server because we're going to give it a new certificate from ACME, and we'll enable the ACME feature. Now, if you come down here, you see that we haven't made any requests yet, and everything is just waiting for us to do something. In order for ACME to work, your site has to be reachable with a real DNS address from the internet. You can't use this for a local address. You can't use it for just an IP address number or some .local name. It has to be a real DNS name. But if you have a real DNS name, as we saw in the demo just a minute ago, then you can request ACME to give you a real certificate for that DNS name. So let's do that and see how it works. First, give it an administrative email. We'll use a real address that we saw in our earlier example. And always a good idea just to use the staging and testing server first to make sure that things work. And make sure you didn't make a typo in your document here. So let's try it and see what happens. It's requesting the certificate, completing challenge. You can see the stages going on here. This all updates in real time. And we have a certificate. But you notice that it's staging, so it's not it completed the system successfully. This is really good. That means that your server is accessible at this address from the internet, so you're all ready to make a real certificate. For ACME to work, you must be reachable on port 80. If you're using an alternate port here, then you need a firewall rule or a NAT forwarding rule to forward port 80 through to your real port. So it's perfectly fine if you are running on 8080, for example, but there needs to be something internet facing that redirects you to use port 80. Otherwise, ACME won't be able to reach you. This is true for both Let's Encrypt and for Bypass. So let's get a real certificate now. Now that everything works, first we'll try Let's Encrypt, the most common. And there we go. Notice this no longer says staging. This issuer is R13, which is the Let's Encrypt official server. And we are ready to use this certificate. It does not automatically replace the certificate up here. It's waiting for you to complete this process, decide that this is good, and then you can say use ACME certificate. So let's do that. This will overwrite, warning is going to overwrite the existing certificate if you had one. Now let's go up here and you see that it's there. We're ready to enable our server. We're now listening with the official internet certificate. So let's see what that looks like. First, we'll go again to HTTPS, and that's a beautiful thing. We now have a lock icon. The connection is secure, verified by Let's Encrypt. BACCARI ACME Manager also supports bypass. So if that is your preference, it's preferred by some people because it issues 180-day certificates rather than 90. You can use that as well. Now that we have our secure web server set up, let's create some users and let them log in. This will be the user's browser view. If they go to the secure web server, as we've seen before, without logging in, they can do things as a guest. But even if they create a file, all they can do is download it. What we want is a submit button right here so they can send it without having to download it and email it somewhere. So let's create some users. This is what multi-user support is all about. And we'll go create some users. Now we have a user, and that user now can log in. And now we have a button that's very important. We can now just directly submit it for signing right here. We click this, and it shows up on our download tab. Notice the state is pending. Great. This means it's waiting for the administrator to approve it. So let's go over to the administrator side and notice there's a new tab here since we enabled multi-user called Approve. If we go there, we can see this request from Alice. There's a summary there. Now we can sign it. We can delete this request and give Alice a phone call. We can sign it and send it back, or we can sign it and add notes, or we can deny it. And when you deny it, it'll also add notes. We'll just simply sign it. Disappears off our approval list. Next time Alice refreshes this page, she sees that it's been signed and she can download it right here. And then when done, either archive it. If you archive it, then she goes and looks at the archive list, and here's an archive list. And when you're finally done with it, don't want to see it again, you can just delete it. So that's the workflow here for sending things to the administrator to be signed and to get the results back. It's very simple, but the real power of this comes in being able to automatically sign things 24/7. So the installer goes to the website, uploads a file, and immediately gets back an answer. So let's see how that would work. The administrator goes to this tab, Policy, adds a new policy for Alice, and says that anything from the range 1,000 to 1,999, let's say, is going to be automatically approved, and including routers and hubs on this date, ending sometime way in the future, because Alice is a trusted installer. So anything in this range from Alice should automatically get approved. So let's see if that works. We go back to Alice, we start, make a new file, add a device. That device, of course, needs to be in that range. It is. And now when she submits for signing, if she goes to the download tab, you'll see that it is automatically signed and she doesn't have to wait, and she can immediately download the resulting file. Put that in the archive and she's ready to install her device. But what happens if a device is outside the policy? Let's try that. We'll add a device that's outside the range and see what happens when we submit it for signing. This time it remains pending, and it's over here on the Approve tab for the administrator. So since the administrator has never heard of this device, they will deny it, and with some response notes. And when Alice goes to look at it, she can see that it's failed, and she can see the response of, what's this? So let's try this again. We'll go back to the top here and we'll add some notes. And now we'll submit it. Since we don't need the failed one anymore, we'll just delete that. And of course, the administrator goes to the Approve tab, sees that, sees the notes, and then signs it. And it shows back up on Alice's download tab. And there it is. Now, even though we've spent some time talking about cases that don't match a policy and the manual operations needed, the real power of setting up a website is so that things can happen automatically. We want the process of signing certificates to be as seamless and painless for the installers as possible. And if the installer is not the certificate authority, not a delegated certificate authority, this is the next best thing. The owner retains complete control of the signing key. The signing key never leaves the machine where this server is running. But by setting up policies, there's no delay in the field for the installer getting their certificate signed and getting the device on the network. So this may be the most advanced scenario. Once this is set up, it's the most efficient operation for installing devices.